Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to be here with you. I'm Dharam Kaur. I think many of you know me. And I am the co-director and developer of Compassion Inquiry along with Gabor Mate. And this talk today is about trusting your gut feelings. So I would just love to know, before we get started, how many of you are familiar with compassionate inquiry? Just raise your hand if you are, just so I know who I'm talking with. And some of you don't have your videos on, so some of you may not be. If you could put your video on, I would really appreciate it. I'd love to see who I'm talking to. And this will be somewhat interactive. I will be showing a PowerPoint, but also connecting with you throughout the PowerPoint and asking you to write things in the chat at different times. So let me just start with this. Maybe I'll just start with how this began. I have been developing the Compassion Inquiry content since its inception, which would be probably since about 2015, actually. And one of the areas that piqued my curiosity is these qualities that we want to embody as a practitioner or a therapist or even a human being. And when Gabor started talking about trusting your gut feelings, and we recognized how valuable that was and how important it is for survival, but also for safety and just really connecting with the body to listen to what the body is saying. I started to wonder, well, what does that actually mean? Trusting your gut feelings, and what's going on in the body, and how does it actually work? And so it was that curiosity that had me research basically everything that I'm going to be sharing with you today about what's the mechanism for us to trust our gut feelings. And I find it really fascinating. I'm also a naturopathic doctor. So this ties in well with my medical background and it really ties in well the intersection between the body and mind. This is integral to understand the mind-body connection, this talk today. There'll be a little time at the end for questions, and so you can write them in the chat or save them till the end. And we'll be finishing in an hour. So I have a hard stop at the hour. So I'm going to now just share the PowerPoint, and thank you for being here. So the topic is Trust Your Gut Feelings, the Science and Wisdom of Embodied Intelligence. So I'm the co-executive director and the CEO and the facilitation director, as well as a facilitator of Compassion Inquiry. I developed the structure of the professional training over many years of working with Dr. Gabor Mate and observing his method or his approach, and then breaking that down into the structure that people could learn. That was my intention. I'm also a naturopathic doctor. I've been practicing since 1989. I've authored 3 books on women's health, and I combine naturopathic medicine with compassion inquiry, as well as with Kundalini yoga, breathing practices, and meditation in supporting others in integrating mind, body, and spirit. So for those of you that may be new, what is compassion inquiry? It is a trauma-informed therapeutic approach developed by Dr. Gabor Mate and myself that supports self-understanding by exploring the connection between the present moment experience and how our experience in the present is invariably connected to and driven by the past. And it's driven by our unconscious core beliefs, by the emotions and sensations that are stored in the body, and by the stories we make up about ourselves and about what happened to us. So in Compassion Inquiry, we invite curiosity towards these patterns so that we can understand them recognized that they were needed for our survival. They were intelligent at the time, but now we have choice and we can choose differently in how we want to show up in the present so that we're not coerced by the past. And this allows us to meet the present with greater clarity, honesty, choice, freedom. In Compassion Choir, we offer a number of trainings. The primary training is the professional year-long 100% online training. And we also have a short course that's a modified, shorter version of that professional training, as well as support groups called the Compassion Choir Circles, a suicide attention training, a training in educating people and working with birthing women, and also a monthly membership called CI Connect. So let's start with this definition of gut feelings. What are they? So as you sit right now, bring your attention to your belly. Maybe you just had lunch or dinner or breakfast. Maybe there's something that's on your mind that's a little bit stressful. Maybe there's excitement about what you're going to do later. But bring your attention to your belly and notice any sensations there. There could be ease and relaxation. There could be sounds of digestion. There could be a little tension. This is what we're talking about. When you pay attention to notice the moment by moment sensations in the belly, but also in your heart, in your other organs. Sometimes people feel things in the liver or even the gallbladder. And also on your skin. Sometimes you'll have a goosebumps or a creepy feeling or something like that. So the gut feeling is the body-based intelligence communicating something to you that's rapid, but it can arise not just from the gut, but from the heart, the viscera, and even your skin. And your body knows earlier than your mind knows. So it's a survival mechanism to reveal something to you that's really designed to keep us safe. So our gut feelings will signal whether something is safe or dangerous, whether something is an opportunity that ideally you want to move towards or something you want to back off from. It'll signal whether a person is suitable for you to connect with, they're safe to connect with, or you might have a creepy feeling and you have an aversion towards that person. A gut feeling can also tell you what's true for you and right for you. So it is linked with your intuition. You know, I should study this course or I should go to this land, you know. So it is connected to your intuition. And they arise before your conscious mind either talks you into it or talks you out of it. So it's really being able to access first, pay attention to access and interpret. Is this feeling one of moving towards something because I feel safe, or moving away from something because I don't feel safe? That's it. So it can feel like tension or constriction, or the opposite could be ease and joy. It could be like a sinking sensation in your stomach or your heart or your chest. It could be warmth and openness in your heart or even in your skin, in your extremities. It could be expansion, ease, excitement. So it can be both positive sensations or sensations that are there as a warning that are constrictive. And so we want to pay attention to both and be able to read them in a way and understand. Basically, we want to be able to read them and not talk ourselves out of them, which is what we often do. So in terms of the nervous system, you have 500 million neurons in the enteric nervous system, and that would be the nervous system of your gut. And so the gut is known as your second brain. And you have 86 billion neurons in the brain for comparison. So there's many more neurons in the brain, but there's a lot of neurons in your gut. So your gut has its own intelligence through the nervous system in the gut, known as the enteric nervous system. And what's very interesting is that the gut and the brain are in constant communication with one another, continually influencing each other. And that's called the gut brain axis. So there's a two-way highway between your brain and your gut and your brain. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And your gut can, and your heart also, I should say a little bit about your heart. Your heart also has its own little nervous system with not nearly as many neurons as the gut, but still enough that your heart can speak to you. Your heart has its own intelligence, as we all know. So your body detects and responds to information way before the rational mind fully processes it. That's what we want. That's why this is so important, is that we pay attention to and appreciate the information the body is giving us. And this gut brain axis, the primary conduit of that gut brain axis is the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve leaves the brain stem and goes to your heart, your lungs, your voice box, your esophagus, and the stomach, liver, gallbladder, and small intestine, large intestine. So it's the vagus nerve that is picking up the signals from the gut, carrying them to the brain. And it's the vagus nerve that's also picking up signals from the brain, carrying it to the gut. So if we think, what's this primary highway? It's primarily the vagus nerve. Therefore, what's going on in your gut will affect your emotions, your mood, your decision making. So if you have food sensitivities, if you're constipated, if you have a disturbed microbiome in the gut, if you've just taken antibiotics, if you have food allergies, if you have ingested some sort of toxin, it'll affect the way you think. And we know that even symptoms like depression and anxiety are often related to a disturbed gut microbiome. Because not only is the vagus nerve picking up things like pressure and peristalsis from the gut, but it's also picking up the composition of your gut flora, 100%. And that composition of the gut flora strongly affects how your brain responds. It strongly affects our mood. So these gut feelings are part of our embodied intelligence and our survival system. There are 38 trillion bacteria in the gut, and this is known as collectively as the gut microbiome. And this is roughly the same as the number of cells in our body. It's almost like we have two bodies, one composed of all our cells, another one is the gut flora. And the gut flora is extremely important. It produces something called short chain fatty acids, which make butyrate. Butyrate is a substance that provides food to the cells of your large intestine and strengthens the gut lining. The microbiome also regulates your immune system. So a huge proportion of your immune system is in the gut. And if your gut flora is healthy, you'll have less inflammation, you'll have a more regulated immune system. Your stress response improves with a healthier gut microbiome. You have more resilience. And interestingly, the gut microbiome also improves brain plasticity, supporting learning and myelination. So in early childhood, some of you probably understand the importance of the first 1,000 days, right? The first 1,000 days of our development and the attachment pattern we had to our parents and the safety and the connections we had to the people around us determines our capacity to learn and our well-being throughout our whole life, really. And if there is chronic stress or trauma in those first 1,000 days, that will impact the rest of our lives. and certain neurological circuits won't develop as well as they might because of that. It's the same with the gut flora. We know that the microbiome develops uh, during labor, actually, as the infant goes through the birth canal. It picks up the lactobacillus from the vagina of the mother, and that begins the um, inoculation, really, of bacteria in the infant's body and in the infant's gut. If somebody had a cesarean birth, that same influence isn't there. And the cesarean birth infant, unless they've been given special probiotics after birth, will be at will have a not as a resilient immune system as the child that had a vaginal birth, the infant that had a vaginal birth. And if we had a vaginal birth and if we were breastfed as infants, we have a more diverse microbiome in that first year or two of life in terms of there's more different types of bacteria in the gut than another child who had, let's say, a cesarean birth and was not breastfed. Similarly, the more contact you have with relatives, let's say an extended family, we pick up organisms from the people that were around, even as infants. So we have a more diverse and healthier gut microbiome, the more connections you have early in life. So it mimics the whole trauma experience. You could say it follows the same pattern. This inoculation of the gut and how important that is in the first 1,000 days as the attachment pattern for the healthy adults with a child. So this healthy gut diversity supports emotional resilience, reduced inflammation, immune regulation, brain plasticity, and learning. And I have shared then that the microbiome affects mood, emotions, mental clarity, and learning. It affects IQ of children. Similarly, the brain affects the gut. So it's a two-way highway. So if we have trauma, chronic stress, and even loneliness, let's say in your life as an adult or older adult, this changes the gut flora. A traumatic event will change the gut flora. Chronic stress will change the gut flora. Chronic stress can also cause a leaky gut, where toxins enter your bloodstream, your circulation, and then negatively affect the brain. We have about 1,000 different species of bacteria in the gut, and then 38 trillion in total. And it's not so much what type of species that's important as that we have a lot of diversity of species. And if you go to different countries in the world and different diets, there'll be different species that make up a healthy gut microbiome in that particular landscape, that particular geographical location. And what determines the types of species primarily as an adult is diet. And the more different types of foods you have, especially fiber, fruits, and vegetables, the greater the diversity. So what we don't want to do is eat the same food over and over again. Is lots of different foods, lots of different fruits and vegetables, lots of different fibers will increase the diversity of the gut. So how do we support the microbiome of the gut so it supports our emotions and our mood? And it supports access to these gut feelings, because if this gut is disturbed, our gut feelings may be inaccurate. So that's the piece here. We first want to have a healthy gut. So what supports it is a vaginal birth and breastfeeding, a diverse plant-based diet with 40 grams of fiber a day. That's a lot of fiber. That would be 1 cup of beans, 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed, maybe 1 tablespoon of chia seeds, 8 servings of fruits and vegetables, eight different fruits and vegetables. That would be about 40 grams of fiber. So it's a lot of fiber. That's one of the most important things. Fermented foods also support the gut. 3 liters of water a day, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, 40 minutes of daily exercise, and regular positive social engagement. So these are the variables that sustain a healthy gut microbiome. what disturbs the microbiome of the gut and then can negatively impact our gut feelings are cesarean birth, no breastfeeding, a high sugar or unhealthy fat diet. So if somebody has a lot of saturated fats from cheese or meats, then that would be disturbance to the gut. Processed or excess red meat, alcohol and tobacco, the overuse of antibiotics, chronic stress and trauma, a sedentary lifestyle, poor sleep, loneliness, and aging. So all of these will disrupt that healthy microbiome and decrease the diversity. The more connected we are to our body and our nervous system, the more clearly we can recognize and trust our inner signals. So we learn sometimes early on, because of trauma, to disconnect from the body and to not pay attention. Or if our emotions were not held and if we weren't allowed to express them, we learn to shut down our connection to the body, our connection to sensations and to our emotions, and hence to gut feelings. And then we just lose this connection to the survival mechanism that's there to signal to us what's not okay. So emotional suppression protects us temporarily as children, but eventually disconnects us from ourselves. It protects us because if we shut down our emotions, we don't have to feel the hurt. We don't have to feel the pain. Or sometimes we shut down our emotions so that we're not ridiculed. If you were told as a child that you're a crybaby, or if you were told that you are a scaredy cat, because you don't want to do something, fear and sadness are there to be expressed. So if we're punished or ridiculed or criticized for our emotions as children, we learn to shut them down. If we're rejected or shamed because we expressed emotions, we learn to shut them down. If we express our emotions and there's nobody there, or nobody hears us, or they walk away from us when we're crying, or we're crying in the middle of the night and nobody comes, then we learn to shut them down because it's less painful to shut them down than to cry and nobody comes. Or if we're feeling timid, if we're feeling weak, if we're feeling uncertain and we're told to be strong, we're not allowed to have these emotions of fear. So it's a survival strategy to suppress sadness, anger, fear, hurt, and even joy in us sometimes as children. And the suppression of these emotions underlies a lot of chronic diseases later on. The suppression of many of these emotions can be linked to autoimmune diseases and cancers later in life. So emotional suppression is something that is very damaging to our well-being throughout our whole life. So what we're doing in compassion inquiry is bringing out those emotions and expressing them. That's why it's so important that we have access to the body, access to sensations, access to emotions, so we can express them. And that will help to reverse the possibility of disease or even reverse certain diseases. So with this emotional suppression, what happens over time? We learn to disconnect from our body sensations. We don't trust them. We don't register intuition or gut feelings. We ignore them. We suppress our emotions and we suppress our needs. We don't even recognize sometimes that we have needs. And we become less authentic and we disconnect from our own inner authority. So we might adopt certain coping strategies to please others or to do what others want us to do or to be perfectionist. We adopt coping strategies instead of being authentic with our emotions and our needs. And then we tend to rely on overthinking and analysis. That's another way of suppressing our emotions, or busyness or distraction, or looking for external validation rather than trusting what we know within ourselves. So we abandon ourselves basically when we disconnect from the body, our intuition, our gut feelings, our emotions, our needs, our authenticity. That's all self-abandonment. What do we replace it with? Overthinking, pleasing others, being busy, distracted, looking for external validation. Trauma also has a huge effect on the gut brain connection. Stress and trauma, we know, affect the nervous system, they affect the gut microbiome, they affect emotional regulation, they affect our body awareness. And this emotional suppression can lead to chronic stress, inflammation, impaired gut health, difficulty sensing intuition, and difficulty naming emotions. That's called alexithymia. And when this trauma or stress is affecting us, we have a tendency to either go into sympathetic mode, which is known as hyperarousal or fight flight. And in sympathetic mode, we might find ourselves anxious, hypervigilant, increased tension, and even panic. Or we will find ourselves in parasympathetic mode, hypoarousal, and that would be the freeze fawn activation of the dorsal vagal, where we might be numb or disassociated or disconnected externally or just not feeling alive. And either way is a disconnection from the body. And then we're disconnecting from our inner signals and our inner needs. So if the vagus nerve is this main superhighway from the gut to the brain, then the insula is the almost like the interpretive center. And the insula is part of the cerebral cortex involved in accessing the gut feeling. So when you say, I notice that I feel tension in my belly, that noticing is the insula. When you say, I notice that there is pressure in my shoulders, noticing is the insula. So that's called interoception, sensing internal body states. And it's on the left and the right side of the brain. So just tucked a little bit underneath the outer part of the cerebral cortex. And it's involved with emotional awareness, empathy, decision making, risk assessment, self awareness. It helps us to notice our heartbeat, our breathing, our gut sensations, pain and pleasure, our emotions, and social cues. So when we practice compassionate inquiry, or if you practice meditation or yoga, you're really developing the insula, this capacity to notice. And that's what we want to strengthen. Because if we strengthen the insula, we strengthen our connection to our gut feelings. And we can start by something really simple, like place your hands, your fingers on your wrist and feel your pulse. And just noticing the pulse and feeling that helps to strengthen the insula. Or putting a hand on your chest and feeling your heart. Now you're in the present. You're just feeling something directly in the body. You're not thinking. Your insula is active. Or following your breath in and out, in and out. And just noticing that word notice. It's it. Being aware of and noticing. You're activating your insula. So this is the first step, is to bring the insula back online. It's been disconnected with some of these very simple exercises in awareness of the body. That's the first step. The insula connects us with the question, how do I feel inside? And because I feel this, what do I choose to do? Right? Instead of what does somebody else want me to do, what do I choose to do because I feel this? So with the help of the insula, we can own the sensations in the body. We can own the emotions. We can recognize that, hey, this is me. This isn't what somebody wants me to be. This is me. And then ideally have choice with how we respond to that. So the insula influences cravings plus addiction, attention and motivation, regulation of your emotions and your intuition and your gut feelings. It translates these body sensations into awareness, emotion, and then action. So this is what we want to do. The healthier your insula, the more turned on it is, the better you will be able to heal. That's the secret. The more activated your insula, the more turned on it is, the more you follow it, the more you will be able to heal. Because the insula is picking up all these signals and the body knows how to heal. If we listen to the signals and follow them, we can heal. If we don't, we won't. So it's really simple and powerful. And that's what we want to strengthen. Now let's look at these four functional regions of the insula. Together, they process emotional clarity, intuition, how to focus under stress, and goal-directed behavior. So if we look at the mid posterior is at the back, and again, there's a left and right insula. They both do slightly different things, but right now we're just looking at back, middle, and front. So the mid back posterior insula deals with body sensations and movement and registers cravings and the impulse to move towards something, attention and motivation, emotional regulation, intuition, and gut feelings. The central insula is involved with taste, disgust, also cravings, nausea, aversion, addiction and compulsions, hunger, and links body discomfort to urges. So, when we have stress and then you have an urge for some addictive substance, that's the insula, linking the emotion to an action to relieve that emotion. And then it goes from there to other parts of the brain that connect to the craving and the action. The central insula also works with pain, visceral sensations, autonomic signals, and sensory motor awareness of your body, moving through space, aware of sensations on your skin. And then the anterior ventral, so that would be anterior at the front, works with emotions and empathy. So emotional awareness of our own emotions and other people's emotions. That's the anterior ventral insula. Compassion. Ventral insula, shame and guilt, same area. Social bonding, same area. So in compassion inquiry, we're strengthening, because of the focus on compassion for self and others, this anterior ventral insula. Then we have an anterior dorsal insula that's a little further back, but at the front still. And this part of the insula works with attention and decision making, emotional clarity, intuition, the capacity to focus under stress, and goal-directed behavior. And now we'll look at the difference between the left and the right insula. Now, generally, your left hemisphere is more cognitive. Your right hemisphere is more feeling. Left hemisphere is more thinking. Right hemisphere is more feeling in the present moment. So keeping that in mind, let's look at how these differ in the left and right insula. So your left insula, in terms of body sensations, it processes objective representation of bodily states, recognizing a physiological change without deep subjective awareness. So it's kind of like registering the change on a cognitive level, but not on a feeling level. The right insula is aware of that change on a feeling level, the subjective awareness of internal body states, such as the perception of heartbeat, or the perception of pain, or the perception of a particular emotion. The left insula, in terms of emotions, is more involved with positive emotions, such as pleasure, affection, love, gratitude, and cognitive control over emotions. It links the body state to the rational processing of emotions. So we see this in compassion inquiry quite often, where a client names the emotion and then they explain it rather than express it. So they're talking about it rather than allowing themselves to feel it and express it. So that would be the left insula. What we want to do is bring them over to the right, where they can feel the emotion and express it. The other interesting thing here, which was a surprise to me, is your right insula locates the negative emotions like fear, disgust, and anxiety that linked with the trauma, you know, linked with the trauma. So with trauma, the right hemisphere kind of shuts down a little bit. We because we suppress it. So the things go into the body. So that's why we need to really feel and name these things like fear, disgust, anxiety, because they've been suppressed. They're hidden. And in the naming, then the healing can happen. The feeling and the naming of it, the healing can happen. The release can happen. In your terms of your autonomic nervous system, it's also surprising here because in other aspects, usually the right hemisphere is more parasympathetic and left is sympathetic. But with regard to the insula, it's the opposite. The left insula is more linked to parasympathetic regulation, and the right insula is more linked to sympathetic activation, fight or flight. Let's go back. In terms of conscious interoception, the left insula helps to process sensations in a cognitive, language-based manner, making sense of feelings. Oh yeah, I feel that because this happened to me. That would be left. Right insula, greater role in moment-to-moment awareness of visceral sensations, noticing the butterflies. What do you notice now? What do you notice now? What do you notice now? That's tracking is the right insula. Pain perception in the left is more linked to sensory discriminative aspects, where and how intense the pain is. Oh, it's in my shoulder. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 6. Whereas the right insula, more related to the emotional content of the pain and how unpleasant it is. Left insula, in terms of social and empathy processing, contributes to perspective taking and cognitive evaluation of others' emotions, whereas the right insula helps to perceive others' pain and emotions at a visceral level, empathy. Interesting, isn't it? So one is very much cognitive left, feeling right. So what happens in trauma is it distorts our gut feelings. With every traumatic event, the amygdala is activated. So the amygdala is another part of the brain that's like a smoke alarm. And if we've had a lot of trauma in early childhood, the amygdala will be easily activated. And when it's easily activated, you're scanning for danger. You become hypervigilant. You need to be safe and you don't feel safe. And it can be the underlying state, that hypervigilance and lack of safety is the underlying state, and the individual sees the world through that lens because the amygdala is always on active alarm. And so with trauma, these cues for safety are missed and threat signals are amplified. So even if the gut feelings are there, the negative gut feelings will be amplified. So they may not be accurate. And this can create anxiety loops, emotional overwhelm, dissociation, or a chronic stress response. So sometimes with trauma, even though safety is there, it's not discerned because the amygdala is overly active. So the first thing we have to do in this case is regulate the person with maybe some slow breathing exercises. We have to bring on the ventral vagal. We have to turn on the vagus nerve, turn on the parasympathetic vagal tone to kind of create safety within the body so that the amygdala can calm down. And then eventually, over time, gut feelings can be correctly perceived because trauma can distort the gut feelings with an overactive amygdala, overactive either sympathetic or dorsal vagal. I hope that's understood. So how do we heal? We heal by reconnecting with the body. That means reconnecting with our body's sensations, naming them as part of the healing, paying attention to them, being able to sit with them, to notice them with things like a body scan or when practicing movement, slow mindful movement. We heal when we allow ourselves to feel our emotions and safely express them, whether that's expressing them to somebody else, journaling, creating art, or just being able to sit with them yourself. We heal when we restore nervous system regulation, being able to turn on your parasympathetic nervous system through calming exercises or breathing or chanting or singing or time in nature or healthy social engagement with people you care about who care about you. And we heal when we strengthen the gut health, improve the microbiome in the ways that I talked about previously. And we heal when we increase our capacity for mindful and interoceptive awareness by giving ourselves space and time to notice. What do I feel now? What do I feel now? So there's always a caring, kind observer paying attention to what's going on in the body. So in this way, healing is not only cognitive, it's physiological, it's emotional, and it's relational. And this reconnection to the body helps to restore our intuition, our emotional clarity, and our authenticity. So that is what we gain from learning to reconnect with our gut feelings, and then we create safety for ourselves in the world when we can do that. So now let's look at how sensations become intuition. So what happens when something happens, your body often notices it before your conscious mind. So first, the gut sends the signal. The vagus nerve carries that information from the gut and the body, your heart, your viscera, to the brain. You might feel butterflies, tension, heaviness, ease, or excitement. The brain checks the signal. The amygdala asks, am I safe or am I in danger? The insula notices what's happening inside your body. Hey, I feel something, and it registers it. And then intuition emerges. The brain combines the body sensations, the emotions, the memories, past experiences, and this creates a feeling of inner knowing that can guide your decisions. Your brain will say, is this familiar? Is this sensation familiar? Is this, do I have a template for this from another incident? And so, because these memories are stored, these body states are stored as memories. And so your intuition can kind of remember, hey, the last time I acted on this, it worked out well. So I'm going to act on it again the same way. We have to learn to read these gut sensations. And at least in my own experience, the older I get, the easier it is to recognize, oh yeah, this is a good sign. I'm going to go with it. Or no, I remember this sensation. I'm not going to say yes to this. So we get better at it over time. Trauma can get in the way because that past stress or trauma disrupts this communication between the brain regions, like causing us to ignore the gut feelings or misread danger or feel overwhelmed or confused or react from fear instead of intuition. So intuition is really the result of the body and the brain working together without the interference of the trauma. And then how do we make meaning of what we sense? So once our gut signals reach the insula and another part of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, they are integrated with emotional memory and decision making via the following structures. So the amygdala, your smoke alarm, tags the sensations from the gut, the signals from the gut, with an emotional tone of either safety, threat, reward, fear, trust, pleasure, or excitement, based on the amygdala's prior emotional templates. So one person might, for the same situation, one person might tag that with safety, another person tags it with threat. So it links the interoceptive state with emotional significance. Then you have the hippocampus, the memory center. It links the gut feelings to an emotional memory, integrating where you are, who you're with, what you're doing and feeling to, when have I felt this before? And what happened the last time I felt this? So it matches the present to feelings from the past, such as this warm feeling in my chest reminds me of being with a close friend from my past. So that means this person is safe. They may become my friend because I have the same feeling with them than I had with my friend who I've known for 10 years. So it's energy. We're picking up energy between people. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex is important for moral decision making, social intuition, whether to trust or not, and knowing whether something will be beneficial or harmful. It integrates emotion with expected outcomes, supporting intuitive decision making. And then the orbital frontal cortex evaluates and compares various possible outcomes. Should I go close to? Should I avoid? Should I wait? Should I check again later? It assesses the risk, it learns from past reward or punishment, and it updates expectations based on new information. Depending on what the body and the emotional memories say, it chooses an action. So that's the orbital frontal cortex. That would be somewhere around here on both sides. So we can really only accurately hear our gut sensations, uh, and what they're really telling us when we have this internal safety. And when we have this internal safety, our nervous system is calm. The body picks up subtle signals more clearly instead of misinterpreting them. You see, causes us to misinterpret a lot of these gut feelings. So we begin to trust the gut feelings because we see it works out when we trust our gut feelings. When we feel stressed or threatened, the body goes into fight, flight, or shuts down. The sensations can feel amplified or distorted, and we mistake fear for intuition. That can happen a lot. We're afraid, and so we say, I shouldn't do that, but we call it intuition, but it's not, it's fear. So, what helps us return to clarity is slow breathing. That returns us to this parasympathetic response. Ventral vagal turns on, 4 to 6 breaths per minute. Mindfulness or body awareness, gentle movement like yoga or walking in the forest or dance, or singing, chanting, or humming, or safe touch like stroking your arms, uh, massaging your feet, just touch can bring us to safety. And when emotions are suppressed, especially in childhood, our stress hormones like cortisol go up, the nervous system stays in survival mode, and the beneficial gut bacteria go down. And this causes a shift in the microbiome. And then we get different signals from the gut because the microbiome is off. So again, we'll have distortion. There'll be more anxiety, more depression, something like that can get in the way when the microbiome is off. So that's why this link to the microbiome is so important. And when that microbiome is disrupted, our gut feelings become noisy or confusing. They're less clear. And then fear, intuition can feel similar as well when the microbiome is off. And our digestion could be affected with bloating, pain, irritable bowel, constipation, diarrhea. And then we might have anxiety, depression, or trauma. These are often linked with this gut imbalance. Emotional suppression also affects the gut microbiome. When we suppress our emotions, it causes us to feel stressed because we can't say what we want to say. When we're under stress, we have changes in the microbiome. When there's changes in the microbiome, our mood changes and the signals from the gut are disrupted. And then it's harder to access intuition and gut feelings. So we can restore this piece through emotional expression, naming our feelings, noticing what we're not saying, eating fiber-rich, diverse plants, 30 to 40, 30 different kinds of vegetables and fruits and fiber per week, and 40 grams of fiber a day, fermented foods, deal with your stress, and get enough 7 or 8 hours of sleep at night. When emotions are expressed, the gut signals become easier to trust. So the emotional expression is key. And now some of the things that support the gut bacteria in terms of foods are a big class of foods called polyphenols. These are high in berries, in nuts and seeds, in many different herbs, in green tea, in dark chocolate. So they're super good for the gut microbiome. Also, categories of foods called polysaccharides, oligosaccharides, genistein, carotenoids, chlorophyll, vitamins. There's a whole list of foods that support the gut flora. And when the gut flora is healthy, then as I said earlier, the immune system works better. And as adults, we have reduced risk of metabolic disease, lower inflammatory bowel disease risk, decreased tumor risk, and even a decreased risk of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease with a healthy gut flora. Here are some of the organisms as part of the gut flora that actually can calm the amygdala and decrease stress and anxiety. So basically, what you want to look for in a probiotic supplement are several species of lactobacillus and several species of bifidobacterium. And then that Akkermansia muciniphila is also very beneficial. And there's certain foods that will encourage the growth of these probiotics. So the healthy foods that improve the probiotic foods are known as prebiotics. These include fermented foods, oats, barley, sweet potatoes, apples, carrots, berries, and resistant starches. And you have a long list there: onions, garlic, leeks, Jerusalem artichoke, green bananas, chicory root, legumes. Let's see what else we have. I'm just going down the list. Mostly it's the same foods. And yeah, that's a bit. And then the brassicas. And then we have pomegranate, cranberry, flaxseed, chia, walnut, and inulin. Inulin is found in Jerusalem artichoke and chicory root. You can also buy it as a powder, which is, it doesn't taste like much. So it's a good thing to add to a smoothie is inulin powder. I add it to my matcha in the morning. Okay, so how do we restore the gut-brain communication? We know that trauma and chronic stress interfere with our ability to sense our gut feelings and to interpret and act on them. And the trauma and the chronic stress affect the amygdala, the insula, the anterior cingulate cortex, the prefrontal cortex, and our stress hormones, causing us to make decisions that are not in our best interest. So we restore this whole gut-brain communication first by restoring the nervous system, turning on the vagus, and through breath work, mindfulness, movement, voice work, somatic work, safe connection, through healthy nutrition, proper sleep. And over time, then the gut signals become more clear and we perceive them more readily, and we can sense them and act on them with clarity. And I'll end there with 3 minutes to spare. Look at that. Okay, any comments or questions? Did you learn anything? Anyone like to share? Other than hearts? Go ahead, Alma. Can you unmute? Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to say it in English.
Yeah.
It was very explicit, very pragmatic. I think I have more awareness, maybe.
Yeah. Understanding.
That trauma cannot facilitate or enhance the emotional expression. So we have to promote number the expression first to step by step, so the person can get right in this consciousness of God, of insula, of amygdala, and all connected. Is that
absolutely right? Yes. Let me expand on that. So the first thing is safety, right? So let's say you're working with somebody, whether it's you as the client or somebody else as a client, we need to have a nice connection with the other person so they'll feel safe, period. So how do we do that? That's the first part. The second part is sometimes the emotional piece is too fast. We start with the body. What do you notice about your breathing? You know, what do you feel here? So we start with little things in the body that are simple. Can you feel your pulse? Can you put your hand on your heart? What do you notice? Because at least we're beginning that connection to the body, right? And then after a little while, once that connection is there, then we can go a little further. What are you feeling emotionally? And to allow that to be expressed, whatever was suppressed when they were
Okay.
a child. But that it can take weeks anyhow. It can take weeks to do that, or months, or years. But that's the piece is first, and at the same time, we have to regulate their nervous system, right? So they're going to need some sort of a practice, whether it's singing or slow breathing or walking in the forest or cold swimming, cold water swimming, because we need to turn on the vagus to calm the amygdala for them to feel safe.
Thank you
So we
very
have to
much.
put it all together, you know? And then
Yes.
you want to adjust the diet ideally and get the good bacteria happening. Yeah, and then it's a process.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes. Very clarifying.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you so much, Hama. Good.
Sure.
Wangari, what you?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, good morning. It's 9
Hi.
p.m. my time. And I just want to say a huge thank you. When I saw the email yesterday, I knew I had to plug in. And this is very timely because this has been my story all my life. I experienced childhood adversity and I have struggled with bloating, constipation
Yeah.
through and through.
Yeah.
But when I first signed up for the circle and was able to integrate, the trauma and just get access to my body, I have noticed a significant improvement. So this is
Isn't that
very time
beautiful?
I can
Isn't that
relate to.
beautiful? Thank you so much, Wangari. And it's amazing, isn't it? It just takes a few little pieces, you put them together, and the body starts to work again.
I know.
And the body
I
starts to work again. It's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll stop there. And if any of you would like to email me a question, I'd be happy to answer. So you can find me at admin@compassioninquiry.com. And thank you to Carolina and the tech team and Lucienne for supporting this project. And I been thrilled to be able to present to you today. Thank you so much. Take good care. Bye for now.